Welcome to the Asbestos Knowledge Empire.
What does asbestos management mean to you?
I used to really struggle with the asbestos management at my site, but now it's a breeze.
It used to be really expensive. I was paying loads, but now I've got my asbestos power team in place. It's so much easier.
Asbestos can be a pain in the arse if not handled right.
We had to stop the job because asbestos was discovered. Now we don't have that problem.
Asbestos management is easier than you think. Asbestos management. Be proactive, not reactive. Think about asbestos first, not last.
And now your hosts, best-selling authors and asbestos experts, Ian Stone and Neil Munro.
Welcome to the Asbestos Knowledge Empire. My name's Ian Munro.
And I'm Ian Stone.
So today we're going to be talking about complacency. Complacency is the asbestos surveyor's biggest enemy.
Number one, biggest enemy overall than hidden asbestos or knowing stuff. Being complacent is so much more an enemy than anything else.
Obviously, we are working in the hazardous industry. We're working with a hazardous product material. However, there's lots of training. Our staff, surveyors, analysts, whatever sort of discipline they're working in, have suitable training, really qualified, and they have to build up experience before they let loose on their own. The asbestos element is kind of our day-to-day job, who we're trained and experienced to work with. What we talk about here is complacency, and that is really the biggest risk when it comes to surveyors is when that starts to creep in. What do we mean by that?
So you can be complacent as a surveyor when you've been doing it for a little while, you get comfortable.
Yeah, I think it peaks for a surveyor not when they're first qualified, because it's still new, it's still fresh, they're still not 100% comfortable with the job.
Yeah,
so they're on their toes, basically.
They have to think about every time they take a sample, rather than it being second nature of putting the mask on, spraying it down, getting your bag ready, getting your wipe ready, all the rest of it. It's like, when you've been doing it a little while, it's like driving a car. You just do these things and then you autopilot, that's the word.
Yeah, it's when that starts to creep in, is the complacency starts to creep in. Definitely. And then kind of when you start to get comfortable, and if you sort of mirrored it with getting more experience, more comfortable, more confident maybe, and then you can maybe get overconfident that you start becoming complacent. Kind of examples, it's when you're surveying and you're getting too confident or too complacent within the actual buildings that you're looking at.
Yeah.
So you're thinking, right, I've surveyed, 500 houses now, they're all the same. Every time I look under this, in this room, in this loft, under this sink, it's always the same. It's when those sort of questions start creeping into your mind.
Again, it's surveying on autopilot. So take an estate of houses that were built in the 70s, for instance. There's some here in Northamptonshire.
Yeah.
And they're all built to a certain specification and a certain look, and they all look the same from the outside. However, now this is where complacency sets in, and it shouldn't. It's when you do street number 1 and they've got these 5 things in, and you go to street number 2, they've got the same 5 things in. You go to street number 3 and you stop looking for additional things, because all you're doing is looking for those initial 5 items. And actually on street number 3, it was built by a couple of different fellas, slightly different. And to give you examples of that, I mean, there's houses in streets where some have AIB risers within them, so asbestos insulating board riser boxing in them, but you can only see them from within the loft space. If you've not inspected that loft space fully, then you're not going to find it. And it's also listening to other surveyors as well. That's kind of helps bleed in complacency when you speak to a surveyor. And again, it's good to do your homework, right? You should have a chat with your mate who's already been doing those surveys the day before, the week before. What did you find? Yeah. Oh, I found vinyl, texture coating, mastic pad, and a cement undercloak outside. Right, okay, happy days. I know I'm going to go and get them as a minimum, but that's the way it should be, a minimum, because then you need to go and still have your eyes open. It's not a sampling exercise, it's a surveying exercise. And I think complacency does set in when you get comfortable like that.
Yeah, and it's not just like that example you described, it could be any building, isn't it? So,
Yes,
if you've got a
commercial
massive,
buildings.
a massive office block where you've surveyed 80% of it, and it's all the same.
Yeah.
And you start to think, well, that's it. I've checked all these ceilings, and there's been nothing in it. And then that last 20%, lo and behold, if you've not checked it right, there's going to be something there.
I'll give you an example of that. Well, I nearly got caught out. I was on a survey of a hospital, and it was exactly as you described. Right, it was kind of, I don't know, 70s build, I think, high-rise set of this hospital wards, and on the top ward, it had been fully refurbed in like 2000s. So as you're walking through as a surveyor, you're not noticing anything. It's like, no, there's nothing here, nothing here, nothing here. Still sampling stuff, but overall, you're going through and there's not a lot there to look at in the sense of what we look for on an ASI survey.
Yeah, and to put that in perspective, this is like day 10 of 8-hour day surveying. That's a perspective, isn't it? It's like you're looking constantly up and down ladders, in the ceiling void, in the wall voids, whatever. Looking in risers, lifting up carpets, exactly the same.
It's literally Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
Groundhog Day. Yeah, nothing here.
Yes.
Nothing here. And that's what carried on, right? And then, so it was like the last floor of this block, and working along, and because it was a hospital, there was a lot of locked rooms, a lot of store cupboards, a lot of locked areas.
Which adds to the frustration.
Oh, massive pain in the arse. You have to wait for the sister to come and open up, or you have to keep walking back to the estates department, which is like a mile away, to get a new set of keys because they've given you a different set or whatever. It's so cliche, but it was the last room on this ward, on this floor, and the door was locked. Sister didn't have a key, facilities didn't have a key, and it was like, well, what are we going to do? I can't remember. We ended up getting a key from somewhere, but I nearly walked away.
You looked in the window again.
Well, that was it, right? So you could see in through the window, and just for our data purposes, it's like, is it consistent to next door? Yes. Is it consistent to the rest of the floor? Yes. Is it consistent to this whole bloody building? Yes. However, I didn't walk away. And I'm so glad that I didn't, because popped in there, had a look in the ceiling void, popped a tile out, and literally straight above that tile was a piece of AIB. And it was madness, absolute madness. It wasn't anywhere else, but we found it, great, and sampled it, so that was all good. And the reason why it was in that location, it wasn't in the rest of the building or anywhere else, was because the floor above was the plant room. And at some point, the plant had been changed above, but there was still this ARB shuttering in the floor. So I wouldn't have found it anywhere else.
Yeah.
But complacency would have led me to miss that asbestos.
Yeah.
And it does happen every now and again that you do things, it'll be the same, and then you surprise yourself. But that is the difference between a complacent surveyor and a non-complacent surveyor. You kind of need to have that wake-up call and go, oh, shit, I could have missed that. Definitely. And that's it. You can never, ever, ever presume something unless you've seen it, touched it, sampled it.
Yeah. Talking about presuming, another complacent surveying sort of danger is presuming things look modern.
Yes.
When you've been surveying a long time and you think you come across a material which looks
similar, like, because you always get feedback, right? So you'll go and you carry out a survey, and the folks go to the lab gets the results back in the report. You check your report off to make sure there's no mistakes, and also you're checking what you sampled on what you believed was going to be asbestos. So you do build up that kind of knowledge, that database in your own mind of what's likely to be asbestos and what isn't. But that is the problem when you go the other way and you start going, well, that's not asbestos.
I need to sample that.
Exactly. I don't need to sample it, which it's ridiculous, because the only way that we can categorically say something's asbestos or not is by having it analysed in the lab. We used to take the piss, didn't we, about on-site analysis.
Yeah.
And but you can, like, so when you're a surveyor and you do build up that knowledge and that expertise, you can gain a sense of whether something is asbestos or not. Especially you and I, because we've done bulk work in the lab as well. So that gives you that extra bit of knowledge.
It does. That really does. It really does help. And I know we've said this loads of times, but having the multi-skilled consultant is so beneficial.
It's worth its weight. Yeah, it's It's worth its weight in
You know,
gold.
like if you're a surveyor and you've been an analyst, you know where the contractor's missed cleaning, you know where debris is in enclosures, and vice versa. You know where to look in a boiler room if you've surveyed it, and you know what asbestos looks like if you've analysed those samples.
And that's what I mean by on-site analysis. It's just a bit of a joke of you've taken a sample, you look at that sample in the bag after you've taken it, and you have a real good kind of close-up look, and you go, do you know what, I reckon that is Azzy. I reckon this has got amosite and chrysotile in. And it's a joke. On-site analysis, it means nothing apart from having a look and a guess. But then it gets backed up by the lab later. And that's the thing, after a while, you do build up that knowledge, that expertise that, yes, this is going to become asbestos. I know it. I bet me mortgage on it. I bet me life on it. But the problem with that is that you can still get caught out because there's other materials that look like asbestos. There's materials that don't look like asbestos that are. I mean, Superlux for one.
Superlux is, that is a big one, and vinyl as well. Isn't it?
Vinyl and the linos again, because I remember there's like the big blue linos that you get in hospitals and communal areas, stuff like that. It looks identical to the stuff from the 60s and 70s in colour, in pattern, in everything. But I don't know. Sometimes people just think, "Oh no, it looks the same. It's fine." It's not. You need to sample it. There's another one for complacency as well. There was a rumour that started. I don't know who started it. A company I used to work for that this certain make of electrical boards didn't contain asbestos fuse suppressants. MEM boards.
Remember it?
Yeah. So, and I heard it, and I was like, "You what?
Yeah.
No, what? So you've not been opening? You've not looked in them? You've told the Sparky not to bother? It's ridiculous because they have contained and they do contain." And I couldn't believe that. And I don't know how many surveys were carried out where MEM boards were ignored. And that's the thing, you shouldn't ignore it because unless you've seen it with your own eyes.
Exactly that. So so complacency is a big danger. So what can we do to kind of counteract that is, first and foremost, is having that conscious sort of mindset to not let it creep in.
Yeah.
It's having that constant, I need to follow the procedure of surveying this correctly. You know, checking your ceilings, your walls, your floors, having that methodical way of surveying constantly and never deviate from that. I think if you can make that conscious decision, that will kind of keep it at bay as much as possible.
I think fear is a good one as well.
Yeah, you've had a scare.
If or just the whole point.
Fear of a scare.
Yeah, fear of a scare. Yeah. If you don't walk away from the survey, shitting yourself a little bit, going, I've bloody found everything.
You need to walk away thinking, I've been everywhere in that building. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing I don't know about that building now. I'm happy. It's having that conscious walking away from site, as you said, and you're like,
knowing you're going to sleep like a baby.
I'm 100% happy with that building.
I've done everything in my power to get everywhere, to find everything. If you've not got that, then you shouldn't be a surveyor. If your attitude is a bit half-assed of that'll do,
yes,
you shouldn't be a surveyor.
Because it will bite you.
It will bite you in the backside massively. That inner instinct, that kind of hunter-gatherer thing as well, of, right, I'm going to hunt this building down to find every bit. So it's found so people aren't exposed. Yeah. That's the ultimate thing. And if you've not got that fear factor of you missing something on a survey may lead to other people being exposed, well, again, you shouldn't be an asbestos surveyor.
If you're the type of person who needs to, smash this out, I need to get home, then 100% you shouldn't be a surveyor. Rushing is probably the second danger for an asbestos surveyor after complacency.
Yeah, 100%.
Is if you can't be bothered to do it, then get out of the industry because it's only ever going to cause you, your company, and the unfortunate people that the mistake falls up against problems. That's kind of the individual sort of thing, but there's kind of company-wide things that can happen to try and alleviate the complacency, isn't there? And kind of comes back to refresher training, doesn't it? So, particularly for newer surveyors, because I think there's a time period between qualified, out on their own, and then fully schooled within all surveying. There's a sort of danger period where complacency can set in.
I can't remember the name of it.
There's like a graph.
Yes, what I'm saying. It's a graph, and it shows you.
As experience goes up, the complacency goes up, and then it hits a point where you are experienced and complacency is way down on your level.
You kind of start out thinking you know everything until you get to the point that you actually go, I know bugger all, which is at the point where you then actually start learning more, and it's a funny one.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, refresher training definitely, and even kind of, I mean, at Acorn we do like monthly meetings, don't we?
Yeah.
And we go through issues and things that have happened, and we share that knowledge. So it's not just categoric refresher training, sitting everybody down and running through
in a classroom. Yeah.
In a classroom. Oh, does everybody remember how to sample? But it's not that kind of thing. It's the bigger picture than that. It's the refresher training in a sense of sharing knowledge, sharing information. I mean, our guys now, at least once a month, one of them sends around a photo of something new and weird and wonderful. One to win the badge of honour going, look what I found. I'm a better surveyor than all of you. But two, it's like a bit of bravado, but it's to help share that information.
Yeah, and if you're on the receiving end of that, you think, oh, bloody hell, I need to look out for that. And again, it refreshes that, it resets that complacency of, oh, do you know what I mean? Actually,
shit, I've never seen that.
I've never seen that. Have I?
Have I been in a building like that and missed it? Maybe.
I don't know. So it kind of resets that kind of priority, doesn't it?
It does.
Which is good. And obviously from the refresh training, again, it's all internal audits. We've got the standard audits that as a company that we do, but it's having that additional audits that we do carry out as well. The spot audits, just to keep the surveyors, they appreciate it to keep them on their toes, really.
Definitely. And with the audits, you need a stickler. You need somebody who's super experienced, but also a stickler. You can't have an auditor that is all pally-pally with everybody. It hasn't got the teeth, basically. You need an auditor that's got teeth, that isn't scared or... Exactly, you're going to pull people and it might upset some people. But in reality, it shouldn't. It should just be that, unless you've gone out your way to not do your job, the whole thing of something being identified on an audit is to make you better. And if it makes you better, it makes your product better, which is your survey. And if it makes the survey better, then overall, it's just making everything better for everyone. For you, for the end user, for the client, it stops people being exposed. Audits are a big thing.
Yeah, audits and re-inspections.
Well, just before going to re-inspections, with audits as well, it's not just the tick box audits. It's not the ones to go and check.
The paperwork exercise.
Yes, it's not paperwork exercise.
You filled in, you've described that room as it looks. It's actually getting in there and re-surveying it.
Yeah.
And looking at, have you actually sampled everything?
Yeah.
Have you actually sampled enough? And those sorts of things.
I mean, some of the other things that we pick up on the audits, or they're like extracurricular audits. It's the kind of, and this goes back to another podcast we were talking about leading from the top. We've got our standards, right? Mm-hmm. And the standards that we bestow upon everyone that works here are pretty bloody high because we're both anal, and we set the bar high for ourselves, and we only expect that of others because at the end of the day, that's what's needed. So when audits happen, the extra stuff that's looked at, it's things like, are our staff wearing their proper and appropriate uniforms? Are their cars clean? Are they clean inside and out? Because all those things, they matter. And they matter to me and they matter to you. It's like, if our guys go out and they've got a minging filthy car...
Yeah, or they're scruffy.
Or they're scruffy. Exactly. That's not what we want because that's not Acorn.
Yeah, if you can't look after those bits, how can you look after the actual end result?
Especially for analysts. If you can't keep your car clean because you can't see that your car's dirty, how the hell can you go into an enclosure and say that enclosure's dirty and isn't clean enough? And the same respect with, if your uniform's dirty or you look a bit scruffy or what, it's like, how can you represent yourself within this industry if you've got those things going on? So, re-inspections.
Yeah. Again, it's just another another way of checking and resurveying those areas to make sure they are correct and giving the feedback. And that's probably the key point from this complacency standpoint is what we do is re-inspection and then give the feedback. Was it okay? Yeah, you got everything. However, there is X, Y, and Z missing from it, or you could put more detail, or
it's those marginal gains that
gains that keeps you on the toes and prevents,
and it makes you better.
Yeah, complacency setting in.
So it's things like when people write their construction overviews about what the building makeup looks like. When that's checked over, it's like, well, yeah, you added X, Y, and Z, but you could have put these bits in. Which, okay, you've not found any additional asbestos, you've not missed any asbestos, but it just takes that information that you're presenting to the client and it turns it up just that one little notch that gives them that little bit extra information, which makes it better overall. On that, it's like checking work, checking other people's work. We generally survey in pairs, and it's funny, like when people come on board and we train them, this is how everybody's trained. It's like whether you're working on the tablet, doing the information input, or if you're surveying, we always say check the other person's work. And it's not to be an arsehole and try and be picky and pinpoint stuff in people, but it's two pairs of eyes are better than one. And different people look at different things in different manner. I mean, in one respect, you could give somebody a document to read and three people would read it and they would claw out different information. And it's the same with when you do a survey and when you inspect somewhere. When you're doing surveying on the ground, like in a normal office scenario, it's easy to do because one person can wander around and do their survey and check the areas. The other person can wander around and do exactly the same. When it becomes more difficult, it's things like ceiling voids and floor spaces, things like that become a bit more of a pain in the arse to actually bother checking. And I mean, I've said this to all of our staff, generally say this all the while. I don't know if they believe this or not, but you and I, we've worked together for donkey's years. And if we were out on a survey tomorrow and there was a ceiling void and I got up, and this is generally how we work, right? I'll climb the ladder, I'll stick my head in the ceiling void, I'll rattle off everything that I can see. So concrete, ceiling, beams, whatever. You'll type it all in, or I'll type it all in, whoever's doing what. And then I'll climb back down the ladder and I'll go, do you want to have a look? And you'll go, yeah. Every single time.
Yeah.
And it's like, we've worked together for donkey's years. You know that I'm all right.
Yeah, I was going to say, I believe it.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. You trust me enough to believe me.
What you see is what you say.
Exactly. Roy Walker. And say what you see. That's the one. Yeah. But that's it. But you'll check my work, I'll check your work. And it's the same on the tablet that we use. It's like, just have a read of that, will you? See if there's anything I missed. Because for all the stuff that you've just told me, I'll rattle it in as quickly as possible, and I might miss something, or I might misinterpret something, or my spelling's crap. Do you know what I mean? It's those things, and then you'll check it. And we work together like that now, and we've worked together for like 20 years.
It does keep that complacency at bay because, you might go, you didn't mention the fog glass in the corner, mate.
The last thing I want is for you to go, oi, you blind or what? Did you not see that over there?
Exactly.
It's, I don't want you pulling me, you know?
Yeah, so they're just some tips and just some guidance on how to stop that because it really is. Can't stress out how important it is that complacency setting in and an asbestos failure is really a big problem for you, for a company, for the end user. Because at the end of the day, if an asbestos surveyor misses something on the survey, potentially there's a risk there that somebody's going to get exposed. And that's what it's all about, preventing that. Well, I hope you found that useful. Remember, asbestos first, not last.